Right, so let's start here. In Midrand, the Pan-African Parliament has once again been postponed, this after more scuffles today. The PAP will now elect new leadership in October. Yesterday, you'll remember, the election was postponed after chaos erupted as members argued against rotational leadership. The South African delegation, in fact, those from Southern Africa, want changes. They're demanding the election be held on a rotational basis. If it's done purely on a vote basis, it tends to favour Western Africa, the Western African bloc. Well, our reporter Khayelihle Khumalo is following proceedings, and he joins me from Midrand now. So, Khaya, you know, you have covered these Pan-African Parliament events before. I don't think we've ever seen these scenes that we have in the last week. What do you think is going on?
Well, that's right, Sally. This is something that is really unprecedented. In fact, I was speaking to the former president, Roger Nkondo, and I was saying what happened to the harmony that's usually prevail in this particular precinct. And he was saying, well, look, it's a different situation this time, and it's quite very contested elections. And we do believe now that session has been moved to October. We do understand also that they are calling for now the intervention of the African Union to officiate in October once they elect the new leadership here at the Pan-African Parliament. So in the meantime, the Secretariat is going to oversee the Parliament so that there is no vacuum. But it was rather quite a very embarrassing situation. I've interacted to so many MPs from various parts of the continent, and it's very similar sentiments, all of them really expressing their outrage. But Sally, joining us now is an MP from Zimbabwe. So, thank you so much indeed for your time. So, quite a very shameful scene, because, I mean, this is something that we haven't seen in these corridors.
Yes, very, very, very unfortunate. It's a situation that should have been avoided. But for some reasons, some would not want to listen to the mother body. We are an organ of AU, and we must take direction from AU. But some decided to go against the instructions of AU. Then we said, no, if we can proceed with elections against AU directions, we become a rebellious organ, and we can't be like that. We are an organization under AU, and AU carries the day. What they tell you is important, and we must respect that.
And now going forward, I mean, there's a stalemate by all accounts. So how do we make sure that we thaw the ice and deal with all these outstanding issues by making sure that you have a new president for the Pan-African Parliament?
No, it's very simple. We are a product of AU, and AU would come forward using its structures to come and bring normalcy to its problem child. Pan-African Parliament doesn't belong to any region. It belongs to the people of Africa. We are not concerned about where our president is going to come from, as long as we follow what we are given as direction by AU. If AU says, let's follow rotation, or we are going to start where, what they say is what we are going to follow. For us and many other regions and many other MPs, they agree that rotation is the way to go, so that every African has the opportunity, every country, every region has the opportunity to give leadership to Pan-African Parliament.
And just to say once again, the perception is if it goes to voting, West Africa or western parts of the continent will inevitably win in comparison to the southern part where you're from. So do you think what should be done in this regard, and also just making sure that there's unity in this key institution? The continent is facing quite a number of challenges, coronavirus, the vaccine, and many other things. But how do we achieve unity?
Unity is simple. If we can look at every country, every citizen of Africa, every region to be equal. The first thing is we have regions with more countries, and maybe because of languages, they tend to take a certain position. That's why we have certain regions, we have taken the position of presidents for more than three times. And they are again on the race to try to take the position again. So if rotation comes, Southern Africa will get its own slot. And among Southern African countries, they will choose a candidate from a certain country. When we come next time, even it is the chance for Southern Africa, we won't take from that country, we'll go to another country. So for Southern Africa, their story is settled. For East Africa, it will be settled. Because when it is a 10 for East Africa, these East African countries will sit among themselves and choose a candidate.
And just before I let you go, sir, we saw very disturbing scenes yesterday. Women also caught up in the forefront, violence happening here, but also similar scenes today, you know, with this failed attempt again. How do we deal with these issues so that people do understand that, you know, MPs can't behave like this?
The challenge is when people stop thinking as Africans, they think through other people, or they think through brown envelopes. When man drives them, they don't think about African needs. When they don't think about African challenges, they don't think about African unity. They think about themselves. So once we can come up with something that stabilizes, where every other region of Africa will know that our turn will come. People will start thinking no one would need to bribe anybody. No one would want to cause commotion because the chance will always come. So the leadership of Africa, our presidents, they should come and give direction. That which is going to create unity among the people of Africa. It should never be one region dominating others, one country dominating others, one individual using the power of his bag to influence positions in Pan-African Parliament or any of our institutions. We need that which will create unity among ourselves. Our forefathers, our leaders who have gone, Mandela, Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Toure, all those people, they gave us a foundation of a united Africa. But we have people who would want to destroy that because they answer to many calls, not African calls.
All right, sir, thank you so much. Quite a lot of issues to explore in that regard. Thank you so much. He is an MP from Zimbabwe, so part of the Southern African region, and we know it's been quite a very heavily contested election. So once again, the second attempt, Sally, today did not succeed. So now they are banking their hope on the AU leaders, the Assembly of Heads of States, a very powerful grouping there.
It was interesting what your guest said, Khaya, because he was alluding to corruption, talking about brown envelopes. And I want to play a clip of an interview you did a little earlier with the EFF leader, Julius Malema, who pointed to a similar thing. Let me just see if we can play that clip. Let's listen in, Khaya.
The environment is not conducive, but you've got people who conduct elections in violent situations where they come from. That's why they don't see anything wrong. For us, it's not conducive because every time we meet, there's a problem. Now, we must not allow this to go on. We have seen a woman being kicked. We have seen a woman being strangled and her arm being broken. We are being pushed around here by women, and we are helpless because we can't do anything. You just behave in a manner that will not put you in a trouble. Very violent activities. So, what do we do? Let's adjourn and then allow the AU to convene us. No interim leadership. The clerk must run the administrative affairs of the Pan-African Parliament. The AU, when it's ready, it must call us back and facilitate the elections.
All right, so I saw your longer interview with Julius Malema, and he did make some reference to concerns about corruption. So talk to us about what's at stake here. Does the elected leader get more perks, more money? Why has this become so hotly contested?
But also, Sally, what you have to understand in this regard is South Africa is a hosting state. We tend to pay quite a lot in terms of the cost, in terms of the expenses for this institution. So that's another very also highly contested issue. But apart from that, we know that the continent is facing quite a litany of issues. An organ of this nature should be leading in terms of making sure that they find solutions, for example, issues like coronavirus, and making sure that, for example, the vaccine would try to upscale all these issues. So really, it's quite a number of issues facing the continent, but it's quite disappointing
it is indeed.
That the issue of election then became the preoccupied item, as it were.
Yeah, and I mean, it raises the question is, if there's so much time to fight over how the new leader of this Pan-African Parliament is elected, it seems that's the most important issue when, as you say, this country is dealing with a lack of vaccines in the middle of a pandemic, which raises another question of, do we actually need the PAP and all the expense it incurs?
You know, Sally, when I spoke to the EFF leader, Mr. Malema, he said it's important to have such an institution, and it's going to take a very long time to try and do away with some of the traditional divides in the continent, where predominantly you'll have your so-called Anglophone, francophone, and so forth. So such an institution should be a champion in terms of making sure that we do away with such tendencies.
Absolutely. I want us to listen to a clip of an interview you did with the ANC Chief Whip, Phemi Majudina. She, of course, was kicked yesterday, and she'd said that she was planning to sue. Let's listen to that clip quickly.
We are still firm as we were on Monday. Last week, as we were on yesterday, we are saying no rotation, no elections. There are two regions that are due for presidency here. It's Southern region and Northern region, who has never led PAP. The arrogance from the francophones countries is because they have numbers in terms of size. They want to intimidate. We cannot be bullied anymore, now or never. If they don't agree to rotation, no elections are going to take place here, not in this chamber. We are here to stand on the principle and to affirm the African Union resolution on rotational principle to allow each and every country. Southern Africa has never led PAP. Northern Africa has never led PAP. We have been bullied for many years. This is enough.
So Phemi Majudina is saying that Southern African states, Northern African states have been bullied and sidelined because it's been Western and Eastern African leaders who've been leading the PAP. And this issue of those sort of historical divides between Anglophone countries and Francophone, formerly Francophone countries. I mean, it's quite interesting if you think of the context. Last week we had the French president visiting us here in South Africa, signalling quite an important step forward between France and South Africa. Looking back at the events that have happened at the PAP, and Kai, I know that you're a keen African watcher. What do you make of South Africa's relations with the rest of Africa, particularly those formerly Francophone countries?
You know, when you just look at the relationship that South Africa does traditionally with some of the countries geographically and located in that part of Africa, the western part, that obviously, I mean, the divide is quite massive, especially because, you know, they mainly speak French, and this is a sense that you get even when you go to the AU sessions, where at times a certain proposition will be made. There's always that issue of saying, well, will the other guys be keen to see it, you know, really just being accepted? So there's always that issue. But you know that, for example, when you have a country like Cote d'Ivoire and South Africa, I mean, former President Begi played quite a crucial role in terms of making sure that the country did see peace, of course working with many other structures, including ECOWAS and among other structures, as it were. But it's always a challenging one, especially because of the distance as well that you have. There is no connectivity. For example, a connecting flight, if you're going to West Africa, you should really go to so many parts of the continent. At some stage, in fact, you can even connect in Paris. So those are some of the issues really that are still really just hindering this partnership we're trying to forge.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your reporting from Midrand. That is our reporter, Khayelihle Khumalo.